before we start, this week we've two female R&B singers have passed, Roberta Flack and Angie Stone, and I didn't know if you knew either one of them personally and your reflections on them.
Ironically, I knew both of them.
Wow.
And Angie and I have been the closest. I met Roberta and have been around her. But Angie and I, a dear friend, we've been close. In fact, I was with her at her show last year up at City Winery. She lives here in the Atlanta area, lived here in the Atlanta area also. And we were supposed to get together because we've been friends since she signed with Sequence to
Oh,
Sugar Hill Records. Her first career, a young rapper, which
yes.
with Sugar Hill Records. And I signed as a producer in 1983. So she and I became friends at that point. I, and her then boyfriend, David, would write songs together and stuff. In fact, I'm looking through some cassettes now of some of the songs that she and I wrote. Yeah, that's a blow to me. Although, sadly, it was Roberta, it was Angie, it was Chris Jasper from the Isley Brothers,
Yes.
it was Gwen McCrae, and it was also Jerry Butler. And ironically, I knew the first three I mentioned, Roberta, Angie, and Chris.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it's a blow. It's a blow to the black music, to R&B music. It's a blow to the industry as a whole and to the world that
yeah,
all of them are gone so quickly, so abruptly.
yeah. Wow. Our prayers to the family, because especially Angie. I mean, a car crash is definitely not the way to go, and that must
So,
be devastating for the family.
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, I just wanted to acknowledge that. I think when we finished last week, we got to where, the group had sort of well, Bobby and Tommy had moved on, and you had recorded yourself. Jody and Eddie went and recorded a track, and then you guys disbanded. I know I wanted to get into your career as a manager, but before then, there are two massive tracks that really, Switch are immortalized for, and they'll never be. And I just wanted to just understand that particular track because it has such a wonderful feeling when people hear it. How did that song come together?
Okay, what we signed with Motown in 1977. Uh, and we moved to Los Angeles at that same time. First, it was in a band house, me and all the guys, me and Melvin and Tommy and Bobby and Philip lived in a house together. After maybe about 8 months of that, I moved out into an apartment with a friend. Okay, and she was just a roommate situation. After maybe about 6 months, she moved out. So Bobby wanted to move in, and I let Bobby move in. In this apartment in North Hollywood, California, most nights when we weren't working or in the studio or doing different stuff, we were at that piano. We had a piano in the living room, my Fender Rhodes in the living room. One night, I'm on the phone with this girl in my bedroom with the door closed, and Bobby's in the front room on the piano. Okay, it was late, man. What, it might have been about midnight, 11:30 midnight. And he knocks on my door and he said, "Man, I wrote this song. You got to hear this song, man." I mean, and that's the kind of stuff we used to do. Well, I didn't really want to get off the phone with the girl, so I told him, "Yeah, yeah, man, give me a few minutes. I'll be there in a few minutes." He went away for a few minutes. He played it some more. I could hear him out there, and he came back. "Greg, you coming out or what?" So I got off the phone with the girl, and he played his idea of "They'll Never Be," and I was amazed. And fortunately, at that time too, Bobby and I we had already completed pretty much the first album. In fact, the first single had been chosen. It was a song called "You're the One for Me," which wound up being on the B side of the first album. So we were pretty much under wraps and, we were putting finishing touches on the record. But that song was so strong, I said, man, we need to call Mr. Gordy. At that point in time, Barry Gordy had recognized Bobby and I as producers for Switch. So he kind of listened to the song. He said, "Yeah, it's a smash. It's a smash." And he said, "I'll call you guys back." He get off the phone. It's about an hour, maybe hour and a half. 2, 3 o'clock, he calls us and said, "Okay, go in the studio and cut it in the morning. I just gave you guys a clear run. I called Georgia, who was the head of traffic in the studio. She knows you're coming. Go in the studio and cut it. So that's what we did. We called the rest of the guys. We went to the studio and we cut it the next day. That wound up becoming our very first single.
Wow.
Everything else got kicked to the side because Berry Gordy felt that song was so strong. And that wound up being our first single. And to date, it's our most noted, and it is noted as our biggest selling record. But I Call Your Name wound up getting more airplay. So
Yeah.
both of those were our two biggest records. They'll never be in I Call Your Name.
When you, I think when Bobby played it to you, what was your initial thought? Did you just thought that's a nice song, or did you really think this is really going to resonate? I mean, that especially being at 1 o'clock in the morning.
We were young, humble guys, man. We didn't know what a hit was from nothing. We just know if we liked it.
Okay.
And the mere fact that I told him that I liked it encouraged him to move forward with it. And then I thought, well, it's enough for Berry Gordy to hear it. I must have thought it was something special if I suggested that we call Mr. Gordy, and we did. So,
what about the rest of the guys? You know, they've been told to come in and record the track. Did they just say instantly love it, or did they?
Yeah, everybody did. You know, I mean, that's the way it was with us. No matter what any of us wrote, everybody supported and liked. I don't remember anybody saying like with the name, when we didn't have a name, everybody would suggest a name, and other guys, if they didn't like it, they tell him to mail it back to wherever you came from. Like either mail it back to Grand Rapids or mail it back to Akron. But when it came to our music, everybody was total support until it was kind of a finished product.
Yeah.
You know? And W definitely stood out to all of us. It definitely stood out. So that's why Heart and Soul went into getting it done.
Were you surprised the success, though? I mean, that's one thing were you surprised how successful the track became? I mean, especially when you record the humble beginnings.
I'll be honest with you, man. I was surprised at all of our successes. I was thankful for them. It was what we had worked for, what we had wanted. But again, I shared that I had a group of humble guys. We're from humble beginnings. And we're just thankful for whatever happens. So we don't go in thinking we're this and we're that, and we're going to be this and we're going to be that with it from an ego standpoint. We believe that only because we were putting our heart and soul and everything we had learned into it.
Yeah.
So
the other track is I Call Your Name. What was the genesis of that particular track as well?
In that same living room, one night, it was during that time me and Bobby lived together. I think we lived together about a year and a half. During that time, he's sitting at the piano and he's playing something, and I start singing, and we start bouncing ideas off of each other with this thing that he was playing. No, Bobby, go here. And he said, Greg, check this out, and things like that. And I wound up being a little more prolific with lyrics than Bobby. So, you know, I just kept throwing verbal ideas while he's playing and singing. And that's how that thing came about. And at that point, when we were at that point, we already had carte blanche in the studio. So me and Bobby said, okay, we cut it tomorrow. We knew we had something special then. And we said we cut it tomorrow. So we did go back in the studio and cut it. But it got cut. When we said we'll cut it tomorrow, that was probably a year and a half about a year after the first album came out.
Okay.
Yeah. It was when we were back in the studio, but about a year after that first album came out. But we knew that we had something special in that one because we'd already been proven with everything else that we had put out.
Yeah.
But how everybody else freaked to it was something special. I mean, really, it blew people away. And you want to know something, man? That song lives on today. Did you by any chance know? I don't know if I talked about the hit that's out now, SZA and Kendrick Lamar.
Yes, yes.
The 30 for 30. I don't know if we discussed that when we talked before, but possibly did. But that record is still at the top of the charts right now. And of course, that's I Call Your Name. It leads with I Call Your Name.
Yes, you did. Yeah. And I did listen to it afterwards. And we did. The other one I did like, and just I Want to Be Closer.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a story behind that. I co-wrote that with Jermaine Jackson.
Wow.
Jermaine gets the credit for it now. Actually, there's an album up here, a cover up here on the wall If so, later I'll point it out to you that our very first album cover, Barry Gordy made him trash the cover. He didn't like it, so he made him shoot another cover. And that came the one with the red with all the pictures on it. But on that cover, it gives me my credits. But on the next one, somehow my credits got left out.
Mhm.
Okay, Jermaine assured me that he would rectify it by the time they did a reprint of the record, but it never happened. So I never really got credit. But Jermaine and I wrote the song. Actually, he brought the idea in the studio. And again, as I said, I was kind of prolific with lyrics and melodies and stuff. So he had me add this and add that. And next thing we know, we got that song. And that was a big hit for us as well.
When you talk about credits, is it what people see, but it isn't that the royalties are coming correctly, but it's how people see who wrote the
Well,
song.
in this instance, the royalties aren't coming correctly because it never got rectified.
Oh,
Situation never got rectified. I co-wrote that song, and the situation never got rectified.
wow.
So that's one of the down stories. That's one of the down stories in my book here.
Yeah, we're gonna
I never
fit.
got credit for that.
Wow. I think that's I think that's always the tough part, but you've really balanced it out where okay, we take some knocks, but we live and grow with that. Um, what I wanted to find out then is that after you came out with you know, the, yourself, Jody and Eddie came out with a single. How did you guys decide? Okay, that's it. We've run our course, or what was was it a formal announcement or?
Oh, okay. You're talking about when we left Motown and went to Total
Yeah,
Experience?
yeah. So you did the record at Total Experience. I mean,
Yeah.
leaving Motown, was that something that you guys decided, or
Well,
go?
it was actually they dropped us and we quit. See what
Okay.
it was is after Bobby, you said Bobby and Tommy left, but also Philip left. His brother, he went over with his
Yeah.
brother, James Ingram, over to Quest Records. He
Hmm.
wound up over there. So anyway, it was me, Bobby, and me, Eddie, and Jody, and we went to Total Experience. We found a couple other guys to come and fill in for Bobby and Philip, and we kept going. We did one album over there, and Total Experience, first of all, was a difficult record company because it was a smaller label than Motown,
Hmm.
and it wasn't as easy dealing with the people there as it was at Motown. It was just something to get us to the next place. So, and the record felt like it was just something to get us to the next place because I produced on all of the Motown Switch albums. In fact, Switch 5, the last album, which didn't make a lot of noise, but I produced that myself.
Hmm.
Okay, this was after Bobby and Tommy made their exit. Okay, well, after Bobby, because Tommy was with us too. But anyway, but with the Total Experience record, even though I made that deal, I only produced one song on it. And it
Wow.
wasn't even a single, the song that I produced. My heart wasn't in it after we left Motown, man. It was after Bobby and Tommy and Philip were gone, my heart wasn't in it anymore. So we did the one record, and still, Jody and Eddie would have gone on had I wanted to go on. But
Okay.
it was time for me to get out. The Total Experience. There were a lot of things going on in my life. I don't think I shared with you that I was using drugs at the time as well. And it was time for me to get out of that. I had to break the cycle of drugs and the badness. So I packed up and I moved to New Jersey. And after I moved to New Jersey, the album came out after I moved to New Jersey, but it flopped here in the States. It did nothing. Had it did something here in the States, it might have inspired me to come back and try to do something different, but it did nothing here. UK and the rest of the world, yeah, it did some damage. It made some
Hmm.
noise. So,
Yeah, yes, you did mention because when we were talking about Bobby, you said you all were it, and with the success and young men, but you were able to separate.
yeah,
Um,
fortunately, Jody, Philip, who never did anything, drink or did drugs you know, and Eddie, they didn't get caught out there. Jody and Eddie dabbled a little bit, but they didn't get caught out there. Me, Bobby, and Tommy got caught out there. And I managed to be able to fight my way back, which is something that neither of them were ever able to do.
yeah, I mean there is a documentary coming out with James and Tommy, not Tommy,
Randy,
Randy. Yes.
James and Randy. And I hope that thing does not come out. That thing is absolutely horrible. And I am actually upset about anybody that would exploit them like that. They are at their worst. They are at a low. And whomever the hell did that documentary, from what I understand, gave them money to do the documentary, knowing that they were going to get high, then filmed them getting high. And DeBarge is having a rough time in life. They are. And for someone to want to exploit that and put that on film, it's disgusting. I'm quite angry about it. And believe it or not, I'm talking with some of my guys to see if there what kind of angle there would be to put an injunction against it and take legal action, because it's horrible. It's horrible. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I just want to shut this off. Okay.
Yeah.
It's horrible. And I'm angry about it, to tell you the truth. And I've talked to a few of my guys. I have not talked to L yet, and I'm waiting to talk to L. I know that L was against it totally, and whoever, I understand that a friend of mine went to the screening of it the other day. Had a screening last week here in the States that are actually trying to get people to buy it so they can air it. And I understand that the producers of the thing said that they had the blessings of the family and stuff like that. That's a lie. They did not. Bunny's in an uproar. L's in an uproar. The other DeBarges are upset about it, So anyway, that thing is wrong. I hope I didn't take this in a different direction.
No. It's good. It's good.
But I'm upset about that. I'm very upset about that. How dare somebody do that to them?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, it's a very vulnerable family, and to be able to exploit them in that way. But as you said, and you probably know more than anyone how tough it is to come out, So by moving to New Jersey, did you have to just wean yourself from everything in order just to come out and give up that habit?
I did. And believe it or not, when I went to New Jersey, I wound up signing with Sugar Hill Records, but the situation was all around me there. It was all around me there. But I was able to fight because all these new environments, I didn't have to go in and partake.
Okay.
And I was always a private person to an extent. And my presentation was important to me. Even when I was on drugs back in Hollywood days and stuff like that, I'd never miss a meeting. I'd always clean, always sharp, prompt, punctual. I just got high in my off hours. And that was too much for me. But I never misrepresented, even as Jody says in a documentary. With Bobby and Tommy, you knew what was going on, but with Greg, you never knew. So, and I was prideful. I loved myself enough to realize that this is no good for me. So I left. And when I moved there, even though I wound up in a few situations that could have taken me back, I walked out the door. I got away. So,
what was it like when you moved to New Jersey and you saw the emergence of DeBarge? The kids, the family that you sort of raised, and
I'll be
seeing
honest
them.
with you. I'm very proud. That's still my family. And part of what I did was to get all of us out of where we were. Because it wasn't nothing. Living in Grand Rapids was only going to take them down, and they were too talented, to not get exposed. So I was happy. I had told Jermaine and Hazel, you got to go meet these kids, and and they came to hang with us Switch was on a promotional tour, and we were in Detroit. And I told Bobby, I said, call them and tell them to come up here so they can meet Jermaine and Hazel. And they did that. They did just that. And that's how things got triggered for them as well. So me wanting them on and wanting them to win, I was very proud and still am of the success they had. Hurt by the failure and the depressing information, but I'm proud of them.
They didn't get you guys to help with their debut album at all, or it was more like that Motown handled that? You guys didn't get involved in their
No,
first.
Bobby did. Bobby was hands-on with some of it, but I was in transition moving over to Soul Experience at the time.
Okay.
Yeah. They came after we had already basically left my Motown before they even started recording.
Okay. So they kind of filled the gap that you guys
But
left.
I will tell you something that a lot of people don't know. During that transition, even though I wound up over at Total Experience, I helped Chico do his first album during that same period. After they dropped DeBarge's first album, Chico went into the studio, and I helped him get into the studio and introduced him to a lot of people, and actually was hands-on with a couple of his songs on his first album.
Wow.
Which, again, I didn't get credit for, but okay.
Okay. More hard knock life.
Truly.
So at Sugar Hill, did you then get back? Did you start doing getting credit for producing, or where did you decide to take your career?
Well, actually, yeah, I stayed at Sugar Hill for a couple of years. I produced a couple of things with West Street Mob, which was Joey Robinson's group, and I'd hang around with. In fact, that's where I met Angie from
Yeah.
Angie Stone, and I produced a few things around there. Who was there? LL Cool J was there. Mo D was in and out. Grandmaster Flash and them was a hit artist at the label at the time. Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, they were the big artists at the time. So yeah, I produced a few things, but nothing ever came of that really either.
Oh, then
So
what did you then do after Sugar Hill?
I wound up in management, believe it or not.
Ah,
Believe it or not, I played with the group GQ for about a year.
okay.
I joined GQ as a keyboard player. You're familiar with GQ, aren't you?
Ah, no.
Disco Nights.
I'm sorry.
Well, when you get a chance, pull
I
up
will.
GQ. Their big hits were Disco Nights and I Do Love You.
Okay.
And they were on RCA Records.
Okay.
Yep. And
And
after I moved to New Jersey, I think I met them maybe about 8 or 9 months in, and I wound up playing with them for about a year, year and a half, going on the road, doing different things with them. But for the most part, after that, I wound up starting a management company and wound up managing acts, man.
how? But then how that's how I'm trying to get the transition. I mean, how you went from being a musician, producer, a singer, then thinking, let me take a back seat and start to help others. How did that, what was the shift?
I learned a lot in my Motown years, and I make friends with people everywhere.
Mm.
And a few of those friends asked me, "Can you help me with this and can you help me with that?"
Ah.
And then ultimately it wound up being, "Well, why don't you manage me?" And so I managed SWV for about 3 months.
No, but
Actually
who was
got
the
them a
first?
deal. I got them a deal on A&M Records, but the person that signed them was leaving the label, and I didn't want them stuck there, so I got them off of there. And so when that whole thing happened, I decided it was time for me to move back to LA while that was going on. And so I gave up the group. They wound up getting with the other person who was my partner, Maureen Singleton. They wound up getting the deal with RCA and moving on, and then they became a big hit. But
Okay.
I will tell you this, I did manage Steezo, a rapper, Steezo, and the Skinny Boys. Both of them were big rap artists on Sleeping Bag Records. I managed Michelle Thomas. She had a television career. She was Justine on The Cosby Show. In later years, she wound up being Laura on Family Matters.
Okay. Okay.
But that was my niece.
Okay.
Her dad is DT from Kool and the Gang,
Wow.
saxophone player. Yeah, and I wound up managing her. Then I wound up, even after that, managing Chico. And then from 1996 to 2003, I managed El DeBarge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you start with Chico first and then moved on to L?
Yeah, well, actually, it was pretty much simultaneously. It was like, you helping El, why don't you help me too?
So I first got to know Chico when he signed with Kadar
Yes,
and came out with when
biggie.
when he came out with that album on was it on Motown? Or, I think it
No,
was.
that wasn't Motown. Yeah, it was. It was Motown. It was
Yes,
Cadardo.
yeah, Kadar. Yes, and I was like, and he looked much younger than well, he is probably younger than all of them, but I didn't. You wouldn't have connected him with the rest of the Barge family, and he really came. And he did a track with Joe. He did a lot of different tracks. At that point, how did you? What was managing him like, and sort of the successes and challenges?
Well, it was always a challenge, to tell you the truth.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it just paused for a second. Okay, sorry. You said it was always a challenge. I think something happened. It just
Still
should.
going?
Yeah, yeah. So you said it was always a
Okay,
challenge.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always a challenge. I mean, Chico's a good kid, and he respected me and looked up to me, but he was animated and he was always into stuff. And it was not an easy task to keep up with him.
Mhm.
He's what, 12 years younger than me, something like that. And it was difficult keeping up with him.
Yeah.
So I had to let that go. I had to let
Okay.
that go. Now, L was a much easier, smoother transition. That's why we stayed together as many years as we did. And even today, we have an unbreakable bond. You know, they're my little brothers, though.
Yeah.
You know, we grew up together.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to look out as best I can. If they need me, I'm there.
Were you managing him when he did Heart and Soul album?
Heart, mind, and soul.
Heart, Mind, and Soul, yes.
Nope. That was with Warner Brothers. I got him right after that. I got him when he did the album for Capitol. Let's see, what was the name of that record?
Was it the Love? I'm wondering if it's the Love. Um, Let me see, because I know that get this
We worked with
free.
DJ Quick on a lot of stuff at that time.
Oh, is that when he was yeah, Second Chance?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was Second Chance, yes. Yeah, so he still, yeah, that was Second Chance. Okay. Um on Geffen. Yeah, okay. And this was it, yeah, Second Chance, yeah. So this is probably when he was almost making a comeback after he had fallen off. Yeah.
We're working it. And we ended when he went to prison. Do you remember that?
Yes.
We stopped when he went to prison and we didn't pick up after that.
Wow.
So,
How hard must that be for you because you had seen Bobby, and then he has passed, and then you're seeing everyone else. I mean, do you think if I'd left them back, back in Grand Rapids, things might have been different, or do you ever feel guilt about?
I'll be honest with you. When I think about if I left them back in Grand Rapids, they would have been dead long before. They've been dead long before. There was no life for them there. They had to get out. They needed to get out. I mean, they grew up in an abusive, neglectful household. Not that their mom was bad. She was just innocent.
Mm,
So dad was a devil. The
mm,
mom was too innocent and helpless to do anything about it. A black mom, a black wife, and a white husband. Uh, she couldn't catch a break. So,
mm.
I mean, I wish certain things in her had been different, but it just is what it was as far as that went. But they didn't have a chance in Grand Rapids. I think drugs would have swallowed them up in Grand Rapids, to tell you the truth.
Wow.
They didn't have a solid upbringing.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I've
mean,
interviewed.
mine was not that it was negative, because mine was not negative in any way, but I was raised by a single mom too, so that's not a complete household. But at least I was surrounded by my grandfather and my uncles and solid men who helped me learn values and principles and things
Yeah.
like that. They were never taught any of that. So
Yeah.
they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying I've interviewed both Bonnie last year and Elle, and they do talk about how the challenges that it was for them, and people would say, couldn't you have done anything? But there's only so much you could do when you're taking care of yourself, trying to run things, and you just can't monitor somebody 24/7.
Absolutely not. You know, and I'll be honest with you, man. I mean, you asked me, you raised the question about after what all that happened to him, would I feel any guilt? You know what? No, I feel thankful that at least I was able to help them get exposed to what can be, because it's not over until they're gone. And who knows what can change. Just like this ugly documentary that they're trying to put out. I would love to see it where they go and they get themselves together. And there's a documentary to show what you can do after you
Mm,
uh, dealt with adversity for so long.
yeah,
But that's yet to come if it ever exists. So
yeah. What what would you say then? When you look back at your career as a manager, which of the artists did you really feel proud of what you achieved with them?
L, I invested more time in L than with most. I have to say Switch, to tell you the truth.
No, of
You know,
course,
because
no
we're still
switch,
alive.
no,
We're
but
still
no,
alive and well, kicking and winning awards and different things. So I have to say Switch, but that's me. So I'm gonna take this bread as long as God's willing. I am too. You know. Uh, what am I most proud of, though? Basically, was the question you were asking
yeah,
me.
as a manager, not because of course
Okay,
switch is yeah,
gotcha.
as a manager when you did the management side.
I'd say L. Even though we did good numbers with the rappers, with the Skinny Boys And with Steezo, we did good numbers. We got a platinum record out of them and stuff like that. And they worked for a while, you know. But no, I'd say L for the most
Yeah.
part. I loved working with my niece, Michelle Thomas, but she went off into television. Michelle, incidentally, as I said, she worked on the Cosby Show. She was periodic spots, and then she was Laura on Family Matters. So that was a legit role. So she grew into that. Sadly, she passed before she could do more. She'd had a great career ahead of her, but she passed away too at a young
Yeah.
age.
That was a sad one.
Yeah.
Just thinking about, because I did a poll a while back when I was saying who has the best falsetto, and I put Philip Bailey, I put L, I put Eddie Kendrick, um, I can't remember a number of other people I put in, and a lot of people were voting for L, but then I sort of started reading the comments, and people said you forgot to put Bobby. And I had really had no idea about his voice and his talent. But for you, for asking you that question, when you think of all the great falsettos, from Motown and beyond, who would you rate,
So ironic though that the four you mentioned are my favorites out of everybody, and I love Ted Mills from Blue Magic. I love a lot of the great guys. Phil Perry is excellent, but my favorite four, and in this order, from least to favorite:
Yeah.
Philip Bailey, L. DeBarge, Eddie Kendricks, and Bobby DeBarge. Bobby
Wow.
DeBarge is number one. Bobby DeBarge, it was a phenomenon. Not just because I know him, not just because that was my brother and I actually got him out of the house and into the game, but because God anointed that kid. That Bobby had something really, really, really special. It was the other side of Bobby that kept that from living as it should have lived. Because right now he should be a superstar. He should be a very wealthy superstar.
Wow.
You know, Bobby to me, and I listen back now, and still he does things that has me in awe, even now. I'm talking about things off records and stuff that we did together and stuff like that. Yeah, Bobby was number one. I guess I will die with him being number one to me.
Wow. I'm going to rerun that poll and put his name and see how other people see with that.
And
Um,
I love Eddie Kendricks too, man. I mean, God, I grew up with. In fact, to be honest with you, what a lot of people don't know is that when I was putting my band Switch together and I thought about vocals, I thought about vocals patterning the vocals after the Temptations. I was the Melvin Franklin, Bobby was the Eddie Kendricks, and Philip was the David Ruffin. That was it.
What was it like when you finally met them?
Met whom?
The Temptations when you joined Motown.
Oh man, I was elated because I've done my top one talent show doing Temptation songs. Of course. And believe it or not, when I met the Temptations, I was allowed to produce a song for their album. I was allowed to produce a song and I got in and got to work with it and things like that for that album. Rick James got the majority of the songs on the album.
Oh, okay.
Standing on the top and stuff like
Yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. But my grandfather died. And when my grandfather died, who helped raise me, I
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
shut down and went back to Michigan. So I didn't finish the project in time for it to make the album. But Berry Gordy did allow me to produce. He asked me to produce something for Temptations, and I did produce a song for them.
But then hearing, I mean, having them, and these are you've got Melvin, you've got Otis. I mean, does it become like this is not real? These are the Temptations who have humiliated.
You know what? To a degree, yes. But if you remember before, even in the first interview, I told you that we're just humble cats, man. So we didn't idolize anybody in particular. It was just that, we held them and gave them their respect and held them in high esteem, but they were our peers. Just like Otis and I are friends now. In fact, he's the trooper holding the Temptations together, and I'm the trooper holding Switch together. So we have a lot of stuff in common. Both of us are Williams. Both of us are dark complected. So we got a lot going on. We joke about that.
I'm surprised he's still going. I mean, that's longevity, the
That's
outlasting your
it.
band.
That's it. Is. God gives him the grace to get up there on the stage and do them steps and all of that. In his 80s, I can only dream and pray to be like Otis.
How did you, what was the catalyst for reforming Switch?
You mean forming the initially
No,
or
reforming. No, no, where we are now. What was the catalyst for coming back after all those years?
to be honest with you, knowing that I had great music that the public still wanted to hear, that every time I went somewhere and someone found out who I was, they would, treat me a certain way and talk to me about, compliment the music and things like that. And I also, Philip, Eddie, Jody, Bobby, Tommy, we became brothers. And even though Bobby and I went in two different directions because his psyche took him someplace else, and my commitment to keeping my band together would not let him destroy it. So we're at odds on some of it. But I don't know, did I tell you this part about when Bobby, the last couple months of his life, he came to live with me? Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah. The AIDS. He'd gotten out of prison. He actually, after he got out of prison, he was going to do that last album, that It's Not Over album, if you're familiar with it. And he contacted me and asked me to write a song with him. So I would go over to his apartment and, and we'd work together and write the song and do what we were going to do and stuff like that. And Bobby had the AIDS pretty bad and it was eating him up externally and internally. And when he got to a place where he couldn't, psychologically, he was gone to the point where he didn't trust his wife or didn't trust his kids. He asked me, can I live with you? I had a house in Woodland Hills, California, big enough. And I told him absolutely. So maybe the last 6 weeks to 2 months of his life, he lived at that house with me. And I had a roommate and a nephew that lived there. And for the most part, man, we watched him deteriorate, to tell you the truth. We were there to support him. It was a lot of things that went on with all that. And I won't give you all the gory details of it. But finally, after his paranoia had taken complete control, I had to call his brothers. And what they did, they came and they got him. And they took him back to Grand Rapids and put him in hospice, where he stayed in hospice for about a month. And then he died. So, and actually, I was the only one to make it back to the funeral too, now that I think about it, which was sad. But yeah, he lived with me I'd say the last couple months of his life, basically.
Were
But
you
that was
guys,
my brother, man. Despite everything else that had happened, I'm the one that walked him into this madness with the TNT flashes. And I was just trying to keep that group together is why we fought most. He was fighting the demons inside, and I was fighting with him because I wasn't going to let the demons inside destroy my group and destroy him. But beside all of that, we loved each other, and that's what that was. And when he needed me, I came through. And it would have been vice versa. I know that in any other situation.
I don't know. Were you able to I'm sure. Was there things, I mean, had you seen him since prior to when he broke up and before he called you? Did
Well, funny thing about it, a year or so after we broke up, I hadn't seen him, but I used to visit him in prison. In fact, I bought him a piano that they authorized that he could have in his cell. Not the first prison he was at, but the second one. They said he could have it, a little portable piano. Casios were just coming out. I bought him one and took it to him and things like that. So we were in touch all the while he was in prison. I was in New Jersey at the time and he was in prison. And then when I moved back to California shortly thereafter, he got out and he moved back to California. So we were in touch. Like I said, he called me and asked me to help him on his album, and I did. So we were in touch. We weren't hanging out and doing things like we used to all the time. To that extent, he had a wife and kids and he was sick and all of this. But yeah, we rekindled, you
wow.
know. And it's ironic too, he left Switch, but who does he call? He calls me and he calls Philip to help him work on his album. So
Wow.
he was still Switch.
But that sounds very challenging, having somebody almost come to live with you and die. I mean, I don't know how does one manage that emotionally?
A day at a time, one day at a time. I can't tell you the nights after he went to sleep and I went to my room and I closed my door and I cried. I can't tell you because I was actually watching him deteriorate and there was nothing I could do. Nothing I could do. Only thing I could do, I did, and that was give him a roof while he needed and be there to comfort him if he needed. And we talked a lot. We talked a lot about life. We talked a lot about our lives. We had a lot of things to bounce off of each other in the course of it. And we laughed a lot. When he wasn't too sick to laugh, we laughed a lot. But as I said, that was my brother, man.
I mean, that's not, that doesn't, I mean, it feels emotionally, that must be a toll. How did you, especially after he passed, how did you sort of overcome that grief? Because you've seen him with,
Yeah, that was a part of me that died when he died. It was one day at a time, man. That's how I dealt with it, one day at a time. You have to keep moving. I can't tell you, how I did it. Just like now, I've lost 5 siblings, in the past 8 years, even more than that. A couple uncles and aunts that were very close to me, and it hurt like hell. I'll tell you, I'm hurting about Angie because Angie and I were friends, but you get through however you get through. And you pray about it and ask God for strength and you keep going. And that's as good as it gets. We all have to cross that threshold at some point in time. So that understanding that, believe it or not, me, it helps. Because I know I got to go that way. And I'm not afraid to go that way. Whenever I got to go that way, I got to go that way. So, and I understood it had to happen to them, whether it was before me or after me. But you deal with it one day at a time, man. That's as good as it gets.
Yeah. Um, I think there are 2 questions that I asked really about when you decided to reform Switch in its modern guise. How did it, what was, who came up with the idea? Who did you call when you wanted to bring back the group? Because it's,
Right. Well, Philip, we had always been in touch with each other anyway, all through the years. Even though I moved to New Jersey, Eddie moved to Las Vegas. Philip and Eddie both got married, and stuff like that. But we were always in touch. We were brothers. That was the thing, the thing that I said. We were brothers. And we stayed in touch, all of us, all those years. So finally, after I moved back to California, in fact, putting Switch back together is what prompted me to move back to California and leave SWV and leave the other folk. But when I moved back to California, me and Philip started hanging out even more. And I say, Philip, this is a possibility. And I'm managing L now. And so I'm dealing with all kind of agents and all kind of promoters. And they say, well, when you bring in Switch, when you bring in Switch. And I can do this for Switch. And so I just called the guys and they just came. And even to this day, fortunately, I still got Eddie. I still got Philip. I've got Michael McGlury, who was the original guitar player on. That's him on They'll Never Be and all that. I got Michael McGlury. And I got a couple other guys to fill in. Somebody fill in for Bobby, somebody fill in for Tommy, and we're good.
What about Jody?
Jody went off. He kind of left the business. When I first tried to put the group back together, I tried it in 1996. And Jody didn't want to do it from there. So I kind of let it be. Philip and Eddie both came with me and we did what we did. And it didn't feel right, so I left it alone. So then in 2003, when I put it back together, Jody wasn't feeling it then. Now it may be a different story because we're all still close and we all still talk. Okay. And Eddie and Jody live in Las Vegas and they get together from time to time. So I don't outrule it. I don't outrule Jody in the future, God willing. But yeah, those 3 are committed. Plus, Jody had not been active in music. Jody went off and wound up being executive at AT&T.
Wow.
While Philip stayed active in music, Eddie stayed active in music.
Okay.
I stayed active in music. So
okay, it makes a difference. So, how are you guys? Do you have anything scheduled now, and how often do you guys get to perform so people can look out for you?
Absolutely. Okay, our next date, in fact, we're playing in Oakland, California on April 18th.
Okay.
And that's going to kick off our year for the most part. That's the first date this year. And there are other dates. We're doing a city winery tour. We did one last year. Actually, ironically, man, and I get excited about it because we hadn't taken out a tour bus since 1981. But we had a 6-night run here in the States, city wineries.
Wow.
So I went and got a bus for us, a sleeper bus. We were on that sleeper bus. For 7 days, we were on that darn bus. Man, it's the most fun I've had in years. It was difficult. It was difficult because we're old men now. Riding
Yeah.
on but it was a bus. It was 12 bunks. It was a lounge in the back of the bus. It was a lounge in the middle of the bus, and televisions and everything. So it was cool, man. It was cool. So we're going to do it again this year. We're going to get on the tour bus again this year. I'm just waiting on the dates to line up that I need. And then
Okay.
we'll do that.
Did City Riley's take over from House of Blues? Is that because they everyone's? It seems as if for R&B, that seems to be a lot of place where R&B acts
You
go.
want to know something? I mean, I hadn't thought about it in those terms, but House of Blues, that term and their volume of clubs is winding down while City Winery is coming up. So yeah, I would dare say it is.
Okay.
Except I think House of Blues catered to a bigger audience, a
Okay.
larger audience. City wineries, they have from maybe 150 seats to 410 seats,
Okay.
okay,
Yeah.
around the country. But they're nice, they're intimate, and it's really a nice thing to do. I
Yeah.
enjoy it. I enjoy it.
Can we just talk about Switch, DeBarge, Motown, and Me? When did the idea come to write the book?
Okay, first of all, when I was a kid, man, I was an avid reader. I would read anything I could get my hands on.
Wow.
So through reading, I learned how to articulate. I wound up learning how to be a storyteller. You know, it just happened. And I've always wanted to chronicleize my life and tell my life story. And believe it or not, this has been a up and down wonderful journey with a bunch of tears and a bunch of anguish and a bunch of joy and a bunch of we did that.
Mm.
And I figured I need to document this. I need to put this down. Let me tell you this. It's funny though. So when things wind down for Switch, things wind down with L, things wind down for Greg, and I'm looking for my next place to go. I wound up going back to school because I left college to join
Yeah.
White Heat
Yeah.
in 1973. At 50 years old, I wound up going back to college. I did
Wow.
wind up getting my associate's degree in English. And to use that, I figured, okay, Greg, it's time to write your book. So I started writing and keep writing and do a little bit here and a little bit there. It actually took me 7 years to put this book together.
Wow.
And believe it or not, when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to put it out, Switch also dropped a new single. It was May of 2019. We had a record we were going to put out, and I decided to do this book. So, of this book, it's 546 pages long. But I had over 700 pages of stuff. So I had to go back and figure out where to cut it and
Wow.
what not to use. So now that I figured out, okay, I'll end the book when we leave tour and Switch disbands. Just before Total Experience. That's where the book ends.
Okay.
But now I'm halfway done with book 2, and
Wow.
that's where it picks up. Because I had 186 pages to start with left over.
Yeah.
So now the other half is there.
Wow. Goodness. When did it initially come out?
Again, May 2019.
And how has been the reception? I mean, what's been the
Oh
reception?
my God. To be honest with you, man, first of all, I did a self-published deal with Amazon. So it was a self-published, self-promote deal. I've sold well over 100,000 copies of the book
Wow.
in that 5-year span. And not only that, man, Amazon has this review page. There are at least 25 reviews on my book in Amazon. Anybody can pull it up and go take a look at it. Just pull up the review on that book. Of those reviews, only 2 of them I don't like. Okay, the majority of them are 5-star reviews. They really say a lot of wonderful stuff about that book, which I appreciate because it lets me know I did something right, with this thing. And the 2 reviews that I don't like, I say, well, at least they paid for the right to have an opinion. So cool. The book,
Yeah,
the
I
book
never
was done
understood.
well.
Well, congratulations. I guess that has now spurred you on that seems to be one of the benefits of for publishers, I guess, having something like Amazon where people they print on order, but it's also a worldwide platform. So that is something.
And for somebody like me, because I've already got a certain level of notoriety, I've already got a certain level of audience that wants to know what I'm talking about. So it works for a cat like me. I was offered a deal through a couple of publishers, legitimate publishers, mainstream publishers. But the deal that they offered me reminded me too much of the deal I signed with Barry White, where they get everything and I get nothing. I said, nope, I will not do it. I will not do
Oh
it.
my
And
God.
I will tell you this too. I'm still talking to two of the three offers I've got to turn this book into a movie. So we'll see if that happens too.
Yeah, I mean,
Because
I
they got
think,
that crazy Bobby DeBarge story, and that's garbage that came out. They've got two unsung documentaries, which are accurate on us. And then they got this piece of garbage that they're trying to sell now, which I hope just dies in their lap.
yeah.
But the story needs to be told because it's a very interesting story, man. Very interesting story.
No, 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 definitely. Especially, when you speak about how the chance meeting with Jermaine and his then wife, but also the whole thing with the lawyer and then Barry White, and it just seems like it's a movie, only made movie and stuff like that.
It is. It's even a movie to me, man. Come on.
Yeah. Did when Switch came out and was successful, did you ever run into Barry White years after?
Barry White and Jermaine were best friends. So the very first show, I mean, in fact, even before that, one of the times we're in the studio, we're working with Jermaine, and who should pop up but Barry? And immediately he recognizes me and Bobby. Because I used to go sit with Barry, when we were recording in the same studio. I'd go sit with him. And of course, who don't know Bobby? So it was on again. And Barry
Oh.
said to me, I knew I was going to see your black ass again.
But was all forgiven in a way, or
Yeah, man, it wasn't no big deal. Come on. It was just part of, look, like I said before, too, you pay to go to college, you pay for your education.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's how I paid for mine, including not getting my credits for I Want to Be Closer, among other credits I should have. I paid for this education. So fortunately, through management and through a continuation of Switch, I've been able to use that education. So I'm
Yeah.
just thankful, man.
Oh my goodness. Well, Greg, it's really been fascinating. I mean, so if people want to catch you guys, where would they find information of tour dates and especially your upcoming if you do another run with City Run, where
Oh, I'm
we
definitely going to do it. It's in the works now. I'm just waiting on them to call me any day now to give me the dates, and I'll see if I can work them. But information on Switch is on www.switchentertainmentworld.com. I keep that thing updated. I keep it polished. It is
wow.
my website, and I want people to visit it. In fact, I just finally did a QR code. So I'm going to start distributing that as well. So people can just flash it and go there and buy their books and buy their caps and their t-shirts and listen to all of our music and see all the videos we did and even see a copy of the Unsung with no commercials.
Okay.
Everything's on there.
Okay.
And I try to keep the tour dates up to date. If it
Okay.
lags a little, blame it on my head, not my heart. It'll get done. It'll get done.
What about social media? Because I think there's a lot of people that are into social media. Are you into
Yes, we
social?
are. Yeah, there are pages, various pages, individual and collective pages for Switch on Facebook, which is where it's now.
Okay. It's for slightly.
Yeah, but anyway, what the X is what it is. I was trying to think because I don't even deal with it, Twitter, X Twitter. But anyway, we've got a presence all over there. But all they have to do is Google us, and all of us pop up. Most of us individually, but as a group, we pop up, and people
Okay.
can reach out to the websites and communicate with us.
Okay. Okay, no, that's definitely good. I mean, I always end my interviews by finding out with all my guests, um, if you were sort of, stuck in an elevator and to kill time before they get you out, you can watch a movie. What movie do you request to watch?
Oh God, that's a hard one. First of all, I'm not a major movie buff, but there are some movies that touch me in a certain way. And they elude me at the moment. What would I watch? My God. You have to get back to you on that one. Because I don't want to say something that'd be wrong.
No, no, any movie. I mean, do you have any?
I like The
oh,
Godfather, man, but I'm
yeah,
not gonna
that's
watch that on the elevator.
no, no. I mean, I guess the whole theme was it. What was your favorite movie? So, so yeah, it was
I'll tell
like,
you what. If I and I do know, all of a sudden I really know what movie I'd watch if I was stuck on the elevator. Harlem Nights, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy.
okay, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah. He brought
yes.
the he brought the
Yeah, because I was
legend.
going to be laughing. Other than that, I'd
Yeah.
probably be crying stuck on the elevator. I'd want to laugh, so that would work.
And okay, and then the final one is always song wise. If you have an all-time favorite song, not a Switch song, but just a song like by any artist. I mean, what would that be?
Oh God, there's a few of those too. I wish I had written "What's Love Got to Do with It" because I think that's an excellent
Wow.
song. Oh God, I heard "As" this morning and it touched me. "As" by Stevie Wonder, it
Okay.
touched me in a way. But songs, man, there's so many great songs, and I know I'm gonna kick myself in the butt later because I do have some favorites. But I'd say, those two that I just mentioned for the time being.
I think, I saw Elle and Silk sing,
Son of a P.
yes. And I do wonder, would we ever see Switch featuring Elle DeBarge performance?
I hope so, man. We've done a few shows together, but we've not. We shared a stage in 2008 in Chicago where we did the show, then SOS Band did the show, then L did the show, and all of us were there. So he called us up on stage. Bunny was there, Chico was there, Randy was there, and all the Switch. And it was, oh God, man, that should have been documented. So with me saying that, and we loved it. And El's my little brother, man. I would join him anywhere. As his manager, I used to travel on the road with him and go
Mm.
up on stage and hang out with him from time to time, overseas and other places. But I would welcome the opportunity for that. I really would.
Yeah.
Plus him and Akili, they like each other. They're friends, and he rooted for Akili and kind of helped Akili through some rough spots of trying to sing Switch songs. So in a heartbeat, man, we could do
Okay.
anything together. That's my
Yeah,
little brother. I love him dearly.
that would be legendary though. This, because everyone, knows the songs, knows the album. Just seeing him and seeing you guys, that would be truly
Absolutely.
legend.
And you got to know L closes his show with "They'll Never Be and I Call Your Name."
Yeah.
All of his shows, he sings "They'll Never Be and I Call Your Name." So to get him up on the stage with us doing it, it would be nice. It would be nice.
But, so as I said, I interviewed him. The he's very shy and very soft spoken, but I guess you probably get to see a different side because he's always feels that, like Michael Jackson type shy. But is he naturally the quiet reserve, being one of the,
Yeah, L is kind of intense. And what I mean by that is he's one to think before he speaks. So that leaves a certain level of silence. But he is one of the nicest,
yeah.
one of the very talented, one of the intelligent people that you'll ever meet in your life. He really is. He's a special guy. He's got his quirks like any damn body, but he's a good guy. And yeah, I dare say he's not shy and bashful around a certain element, but he's thought provoked and then acts.
Mm,
So that's why
yeah.
he's kind of laid back.
Yeah, yeah. And as I said, we've I've recently just seen Bonnie start coming out and performing and stuff. And you know, as I said, it is amazing that God really blessed the family with so much talent. But then they have it's just been a blessing and an unfortunate curse that they've all suffered with. And it seems really hard that one family can go through so much. And But as a fan, I'm grateful that we were able to see them and celebrate their music. I mean, the Rhythm of the Night. I always remember when I was in boarding school, and how much that meant to me. And listening to all of them, but then you can also be really sympathetic towards the plight that has really harmed them, and not having the same strength that you sort of had through family to really get them over. But that's the blessing and the curse that they've had to juggle with. Yeah.
Yeah, but some God saw fit to balance it out to some degree. I mean, he knew that they were going to have an extreme, difficult part with life, so he gave them extreme talents, which allowed them to see some beauty in the world.
Yeah.
Through their talents and good looks, they've been allowed to see and taste and feel some beauty in life. Because what happened in those houses or that household, I wouldn't wish on nobody.
Wow.
And I was there. I'm not an outsider looking in. I was there.
Wow.
I will not sit here and say I witnessed any of the physical assaults or anything like that, but I did witness some of the verbal and some of the intimidation and some of the fear that they experienced. And I knew what it was doing to them. And God saw fit to put me in as some kind of light through some of it for some of them. So.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, as I said, I'm working with a young boy who has similar situations with his dad, had this with his dad, and he's not seen his dad for a while. And I'm working with him to overcome that trauma so he doesn't grow up with that. And it's the kind of thing that unless you understand how devastating it can be in such a young, vulnerable age, you live with that, and people might not understand why they couldn't show strength, but it's just really deep rooted. If somebody's beating you down when you're just growing, you just can't. It's not easy to recover.
Oh, it's so confusing. It's just like you're looking to the people that are supposed to teach you
Yeah,
things, teach you the bad things. So yeah, it is. It's traumatic and sometimes never yielding, never ending.
yeah,
So I applaud you for saying that you're working with somebody like that because they need us. They definitely need us.
yeah. Well, great. It is just I back your time just after 6. I appreciate this time, and as I put the stuff together, I'll make sure that we put the links to the website, not just for the book, but also to keep in track with Switch. I'm going to make sure I listen to GQ and Disco Nights, but also being able to put the link to the book as well when this comes out, and hopefully. Um, After you guys do your tour and stuff, and late in the year, we may have a chance to reconnect just to see how it was on the road
I
and
like that.
see if there's any more plans and stuff. Because I've really been blessed by your story and by your journey, and I can understand how easy it was to write the book because you're very much the way you chronicle your life and your journey in such a balanced manner is just really inspiring. And so I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time, Greg.
Thank you very much, man. I've so enjoyed this and I'd like to come back. I'd like to come back. Sometime I'd like to come back and bring the fellas with me. So
Yes,
Philip and Eddie and them can share in it. So you and I,
yes,
we've got to stay in touch, okay?
yes. I mean, I'm
I
as I
gave,
said.
I don't know if I gave you my phone number, but if I didn't, I'm going to put it in the email to you.
Okay. Yes,
So
yes,
you have it.
please. Yes,
Okay?
please do. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's this will come out just before Easter, and I'll put it in sections, and I'll let you know when it's out so people you can see how well it's been received. But I would definitely, yes, want to get you guys, and really, yeah, people would love to be able to see all the guys and just really celebrate you as a group as well.
Yeah, they'll come hang with us because they do. I call them and they say, let's do it. And we always do. So I'd love
Oh,
to bring them. I
okay.
want
Well, I know you have got an appointment, and I appreciate, and that's what I'm glad we're able to just get you sorted this time around.
to, man. I've enjoyed. I've
Oh,
enjoyed. I look forward to our next.
yes, definitely, Greg. I'll keep in touch. All
All
right.
right, man. You be well.
I will. Thank you.
Take care.
Take
All right.
care.
Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that category.
And somewhere in between
us for even loving us, on which I did miss you.
What was it like growing up?
Still making an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple of pieces.
trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No, okay.
They don't understand what Jodeci's voice is winning all spirits.
Play it.
And all these guys, they all work together.
I mean, I love all different genres.